The blizzard howled through the colony streets of Arcturus Station like a living thing, hungry and merciless. Zyra Valen dragged herself forward, each step a monumental effort that sent fresh agony shooting through her mangled leg. The fur along her spine, once a proud silver blue that marked her as a navigator of the Felidae Concordat, was now matted with frozen blood and ice crystals. She had knocked on 12 doors, 12 homes belonging to 12 different species from across the galactic community. The VRYNN had peered through their atmospheric shield and chittered in alarm before sealing their entrance. The Calathi had opened their door just wide enough to see her wounds, then closed it with finality. The others hadn't even bothered to look. Zyra understood. She was dying, and death was a contagion no one wanted near their threshold. Her ship had crashed 3 kilometers outside the settlement, and her crew, her beautiful, brave crew, had perished in the impact. She alone had crawled from the wreckage, driven by an instinct deeper than logic. Survive. But survival, it seemed, was not meant for her tonight. The 13th door stood before her now, barely visible through the white curtain of snow. It was smaller than the others, set into a modest hab unit at the edge of the commercial district. Through her failing vision, Zyra could make out warm light seeping from beneath the frame. Her frost-damaged paw rose, trembling, and fell against the metal surface. Once, twice, on the third knock, her strength abandoned her entirely. Zyra collapsed against the door, her consciousness flickering like a candle in the wind. Celine Kale had been about to pour her 3rd cup of coffee when she heard it. A sound too deliberate to be the wind, too weak to be anything but desperate. She set down the pot and moved to the door, her fingers hovering over the external camera display. What she saw made her breath catch. A Felidae, one of the cat-like species that served as navigators and scouts across known space, renowned for their grace and aloofness. This one was crumpled against her door like discarded cargo, her fur a mess of white and red, her breathing shallow and labored. Celine's hand moved to the door release without hesitation. The portal hissed open, and the Felidae tumbled inward with the rush of freezing air. Celine dropped to her knees, her hands already moving to assess the injuries. A compound fracture in the left hind leg, severe hypothermia, lacerations across the torso, possible internal bleeding. Jesus, Celine whispered, though whether it was prayer or curse, she couldn't say. The alien's eyes, brilliant amber, even now, flickered open for a moment. Those eyes held surprise, then something that might have been relief, before sliding shut again. Celine didn't waste time with questions. She was a medic, trained in xenobiology out of necessity in humanity's early days of galactic integration. Her species had learned quickly that to be accepted among the stars, they needed to be useful, and humans had a peculiar talent for keeping things alive. She triggered her emergency medical kit from the wall compartment and began working with the practiced efficiency of someone who had patched up more species than most beings had met. The thermal blanket first, to stop the hypothermia from claiming her patient. Then the coagulant spray for the lacerations. The bone stabilizer for the leg. Stay with me, Celine murmured as she worked, knowing the Felidae probably couldn't understand standard in her current state. You didn't knock on my door just to die on my floor. Hours passed. The blizzard raged on outside, but inside Celine's hab unit, a different kind of storm had been weathered. The Felidae, Zyra, according to the identification chip Celine had scanned, lay on a heated med pad, her breathing finally steady and strong. Celine sat in a chair nearby, her coffee long forgotten and cold. She had set up an 4-drip of universal nutrients and monitored the readings every few minutes. The bone regenerator hummed softly, knitting together shattered fragments of alien bone with patient precision. When Zyra's eyes finally opened fully, dawn was breaking outside, painting the snow-covered settlement in shades of pink and gold. Zyra's voice was rough, her translator unit damaged but functional. You are human. Guilty as charged, Celine said, managing a tired smile. How are you feeling? Zyra's gaze swept the room, taking in the medical equipment, the careful bandaging, the warmth. I knocked on 12 doors before yours. I know, Celine said quietly. I checked the colony logs. 12 different species, 12 rejections. They feared death, Zyra said, no judgment in her tone. It is logical. I would have been a burden. A risk. Maybe. Celine stood and checked the flow rate. But where I come from, we have this stubborn idea that logic isn't the only thing worth following. Zyra's ears twitched, a sign of confusion in her species. Explain. Celine settled back into her chair. Humans, we're a weird bunch. We take in stray animals. We rescue wounded enemies. We run into burning buildings to save strangers. It's not always smart, and it's definitely not always safe. She met Zyra's amber gaze. But we figure that if we lose our humanity trying to be logical, we've already lost everything that matters. Your species is young in the galactic community, Zyra observed. Many consider you reckless. Yeah, well, reckless is kind of our thing. Celine grinned. We're the species that looked at space, infinite, cold, lethal space, and decided it looked like fun. We're the ones who meet new aliens, and our first instinct is to figure out if we can be friends. We're not the smartest, not the strongest, not the fastest. She gestured to the medical equipment. But we're pretty damn good at keeping things alive that want to live. Zyra was silent for a long moment, processing this. The other species, they have protocols, systems, logical frameworks for when to offer aid and when to preserve resources. And we have this. Celine tapped her chest, over her heart. It's gotten us into trouble more times than I can count. But it's also the reason we're here, talking right now, instead of me filing a death report with colony administration. Why? Zyra asked, the question raw and genuine. Why risk yourself for a stranger? For an alien whose people you barely know? Celine considered the question, really thought about it. Finally, she shrugged. Because you knocked on my door. Because you were hurt and scared and alone. Because. She paused, searching for the right words. Because if the universe is going to be cold and hard and indifferent, then someone needs to be warm and soft and caring. And humans decided a long time ago that we'd rather be the weird ones who care too much than the smart ones who care too little. Zyra's tail curled slowly, a gesture of deep thought among her people. I will report this to the Concordat. Your actions tonight may change how my people view humanity. Don't make it a big deal, Celine said, standing to check the bone regenerator's progress. Just tell them the truth. A human answered the door. That's all. But Zyra understood, in that moment, that it was everything. In a galaxy that ran on efficiency and logic and carefully calculated risk assessments, humanity had carved out a different niche entirely. They were the species that answered doors in blizzards. The ones who pulled strangers from wreckage. The ones who saw someone in need and simply helped. Outside, the blizzard had finally broken, and Arcturus Station's binary suns rose over a world transformed by fresh snow. In